So ladies and gentlemen, as 5G networks roll out globally, they bring ultra-fast speeds, low latency, and massive device connectivity, revolutionizing industries such as healthcare, autonomous driving, and smart cities. However, even as 5G is still being deployed, the conversation has already shifted to what comes next. The evolution beyond 5G is driven by growing user expectations for more immersive experiences, such as seamless AR VR, real time holographic communication, and AI powered applications. So, moving on to our next panel discussion, which will deliberate on all these topics. And the discussion topic is redefining user expectations. What comes after 5G? May I invite our panelists on stage, please? We have joining us Mr. Puneet Chopra, Telecom CTO, Hewlett Packard Enterprise, India. Can I have Mr. Puneet on stage, please? I have Dr. Sidharth Shukla, Head Emerging Tech and Industry Engagement Network Strategy from Bharti Airtel Limited. Dr. Shukla. And joining us back on stage is Rakhee A. Chachra, Global Research Leader, TME, Institute of Business Value, IBM. Welcome back, Rakhee. And to moderate the session, we have Mr. Jaideep Ghosh, Member, Harvard Business Review Advisory Council. Can we have Mr. Ghosh on stage? Over to you, Jaideep, for this panel.
Good afternoon, everybody, and we've had a lot of discussions and not so much discussions, a lot of presentations and talks so far. We'll continue from there in terms of what after 5G is the topic that's been given here. And thank you for the presentation on the global IBM survey as well in the CSP segment, communication service provider segment. And see, globally, I think, most of the telecom operators are, kind of experiencing low growth, and often in single digits, and there is pressure to, maintain the margins. Many countries, including in India, the competition is intense, as we all know. There's a lack of pricing premium, as in there is no price premium for higher speed. No higher price for higher speed doesn't really work. That's what we've seen, notwithstanding recent tariff hikes after a long time for launch of 5G. And that enterprise killer application remains elusive, as we are aware, and we also heard this morning that there are many things, but nothing has emerged as a mega killer application. So there is overall a lot of pressure on the cash flows and hence pressure on investments, notably on the big ticket network investment. That's how the industry is characterized. The primary challenge from, if I take an operator perspective, is to maintain pricing premium by offering at this point of time 5G oriented services, because questions and we've had one little bit maybe relevant question here in terms of quality of service and then use cases, enterprise, etc. That's what it is. In that context, this panel, the topic is what after 5G. So I think I'm a little reluctant to jump into a 6G discussions right now, because that's something at least is half a decade away, and more speak around 5G plus what else beyond and besides 5G is needed to make this current situation and work. That's where I am kind of going to seek some views from my panelists, co-panelists. Maybe I'll start with you, Sidharth, and then come back to you, after I get some views. How do you see it's been almost 2 years, 5G has been launched. How do you see customer expectations, both, retail customers as well as enterprise, in summary, which has evolved? with the launch of 5G, and how do you think, this is shaping up so far? And we'll request everybody to keep the answers 3 minutes or so, because as you can see, that timer is on and we need to complete this. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So if I keep it short, what I would say that when we launched 5G and people were expecting there'll be a drastic change in terms of the first vertical, the enhanced mobile broadband experience, though the experience has improved, but the subtle changes were not noticed by the environment. What 5G will deliver is when we go to the other verticals, low latency services and IoT. What we are seeing now, that the growth and the demand and requirement for the private 5G networks, the IoT, FWA. Now, what we have seen that the total bandwidth, the utilization of 5G is quite less. 5G users, the smartphone users are only 30 or maybe less than 30%. At only 20 to 30% of the bandwidth is used for 5G as a service. So time on technology is only 30%. So the balance utilization, FWA is if you see a killer, or it's a better application, because laying fibers is a big issue, right of way cost and other issues. It's very easy to install, and FWA is catching up in a big way. That will make a difference in the environment and the people, how they sense 5G as a network. Thereafter, 5G advanced features with more AI, more automation, slicing, giving specific user demands, like there is a stadium and you want certain users to be given high priority because it's a congested network. Hence, slicing and these applications will make a difference. Then you'll realize yes, 5G is making a difference. The features of 5G will actually impact the users. And yes, quality of service is important. We are keeping a serious check on quality of service, whether the data experience and the voice experience. As we're moving more to data-driven services, the data services should be as per the thresholds which we give in the SLA. That is from my side.
Thank you so much. I think, and thanks for keeping it short. I think I'll ask a similar point to Puneet as well, in terms of evolution of the customer expectations. But maybe you could focus a little bit on how do you see, specific industries like healthcare or education or one or two more, where there's expectations as we are in 5G generation today and going forward. Little bit of kind of, if you could share also.
Thank you, Jaideep. So basically, we have the technology, well spread out in the radio interface. To get more out of that technology and more juice out of actually whatever investment has been made by the telcos, there are some, you can say, complementary technologies that need to actually, progress, and that need to actually be melded together. Progress is something which is already happening at a parallel pace. When we talk about AI, when we talk about, IoT, when we talk about other things like the transport network, all those things are actually happening. Now, 5G is supposed to give something like 300 to 400 Mbps as an average speed. But we don't get that. We get something close to around 80, 70 Mbps, when you download, and that also actually not always. So what this means is that you should be able to actually get something like 10 raised to the power 3 times core bandwidth in the IP networks. So now we have terabits per second, which is actually in the core routers, which are sitting in the backbone. And when it was 3G, we were having 3 to 4 Mbps as the average speed, and then they were actually Gbps, some few hundreds of Gbps. In 6G or in 5G advanced, as we call it, 6G would be actually terabits per second, and the spectrum will also be like terahertz. So we would be then talking about, petascale in the core routers. Now coming to 5G advanced, before 6G, we are talking about midway. So AI is not going to be remaining the same as it is today. It's also going to be progressing. Python is going to be progressing. New maths algorithms are going to be incubated into Python. New, you can say, classifiers like random forest, KNN, some hundreds of more would actually come in to give better accuracy to the models. When we combine all this with the data which is actually ingested out of the network, and we incubate that into the relevant industries, like take for example healthcare. So let me give a specific, you can say, use case. There's a disease called as sepsis, and we already have some kind of you can say vaccine available for that. We know how exactly the patient is to be treated, but we don't get to know whether a patient has this disease or not. It's like a snake bite. It acts very fast, and it actually kills the patient within 24 hours. Yeah. But all the tests which are required to make sure that antidote is required for sepsis to be given, those tests actually take more than that. So with AI incubated in that, and you are actually talking about 5G, then if the patient is actually not immediately accessible to the hospital, so you have to do remote testing. So 5G will enable that, and within 3-4 hours you can get to know whether he's a sepsis or a pre-sepsis or a post-sepsis patient, and you can give him that antidote and you can save him. Then you're talking about remote surgery. You're talking about elderly patients who are actually not getting this access. So the wearable devices which are able to actually send back in real time their health conditions, so that the hospital is able to get to know, like what Randeep talked about in the morning, a complete knock
Correct.
of the hospitals. Coming to the other industry, you said smart cities. So smart cities, talking about fantastic infrastructure, talking about nice, you can say, roads without any potholes. So we can imagine a future where we have, you can say, AI-enabled cameras able to actually click photographs, send it, and there has to be an investment made by the government also. Government should subscribe to that service from the telcos. Telcos would be able to give those services, but then that investment has to be done. And that intention has to be there. The will has to be there. That the people have to come back, repair it. It will require some kind of investment to make those, cities smart cities. Then we talk about immersive reality. We have AR, augmented reality. We have virtual reality. When you mix of both, you have something like immersive mixed reality. Like people actually attending a meeting at a far off place, sending their avatar there. A holocaust kind of a thing. And let's say you happen to attend. We have a meeting. I can't travel. And now my holocaust seems to be actually, speaking to you. You are in real time talking, but I need to be talking, and my speech has to actually travel there at electric speed, so that you are actually not able to actually have an awkward moment. Some areas.
Yeah.
So I can talk more, but just
Yeah.
actually keep the.
No, sure. That gives a perspective from a couple of sectors. I think I was going to.
I just wanted
go
to
ahead.
add on is
Then Rakhee,
use
I'll come
cases.
to you on because any discussion has to have AI in. So go
Puneet
ahead.
has mentioned the use cases which are there in the environment. I'll tell you 2-3 use cases which I had a briefing with the power and ministry sector and the ports, oil and natural gas. We gave them a presentation of 5G, and then they realized that 5G, first establishing a private network, say in a port or in a oil and natural gas sector or in the electricity grid, they were really excited that 5G will make a lot of difference for them, because they have been laying fibers, they've been laying lines, everything is on the predated SDH and IP networks. So they were what they were contemplating, that drones and other robotic instruments were places where it is risky for the human interface. That can be solved by 5G private networks, and drones and these autonomous vehicles actually can do a lot at places, because the weather is very different in mines, because you have to it's a hazard for a human being. So at these places 5G integrated network and the IoT devices can make a lot of change. So this is a new sector which is coming in as 5G use case.
Thank you so much. I mean, I was going to ask you, and I think public sector and government has we tend to speak maybe in this kind of forum more about private sector, but I think they have far more opportunities. Now, any discussion on any forum needs to have AI, generative AI, and cyber security, etc. must. So, Rakhee, your views on in this 5G plus era, how do you think generative AI and also a little bit on cyber security, how are these things relevant and blending in some views?
Sure. Before I jump into the cybersecurity, I wanted to add to the discussion that you were talking about use cases, right? One of the experiences that I've had, and when we look at 5G and when we look at adoption, is that the entire premise of 5G monetization is based on B2B. And in the use cases that we talk about, AR, VR, all of them, I think I agree with what Gulshan said. They are great examples of application, but mass scale adoption is something that will be a little far away. Meta is trying to do it, and it'll happen, but it's not happening now. From a B2B perspective, having the use case is not enough. I think having the ecosystem play with connectivity, with pricing, with enterprises asking for it. Today, the enterprises, they look at data, they understand they have the requirement, but they don't really know who they have to go to, right? So you have the connectivity provider, you have an SI provider, you have somebody telling them AI, ML solutions. So it's quite fragmented and distributed, and everyone's kind of positioning their own solutions. But I think from a telco perspective, they have the strongest value proposition. They can go in and say, I can do everything. I'll bring you the connectivity. I'll bring you the solution. I'll bring you the cloud solution. I'll bring you the use case. And with me is an ecosystem of partners. You deal with me and I'll bring you the partners. I think that value proposition is what we are focusing on, but it's not materializing, and it's not because of lack of trying. It's because we're not ready yet. It will happen. I'm quite confident it will happen. It will take maybe a year plus, but I feel that that's what's going to take 5G off. So in the meanwhile, we need to work on the use cases. We need to work on all of that. So that was my perspective on the B2B 5G adoption. When we talk about 5G, we also invariably are now talking about AI and Gen AI. With ChatGPT, I'm sure everyone uses ChatGPT. If you have a question, you use it. And what happens is invariably, the fact that it's open and it's available, we are invariably sharing information from an employee perspective with the system that we are not even aware of, that kind of goes against security policies. You know, we're not doing it intentionally. It's all happening unintentionally because we're not aware, we're not educated. And that's an area of concern. So just to give you a perspective, there are a lot of AI and Gen AI use cases happening. And we did a research and we found that out of the Gen AI use cases, only 24% have embedded security measures. Although 80% of the executives say security is very, very important. So you can already see there's a gap between execution and expectation. So one way to counter all of these things is to have a governance structure in place. AI governance is very important. You need to have a cross-collaboration team. You need to look at risk. You need to look at compliance. You need to look at cybersecurity. And you need to have all these different teams in your organization talking to each other. You have your data security teams, your business teams, your sales team. Everybody needs to work together to have an aligned AI strategy. I think if you have all of that, you get the building blocks of getting this in place. A very long answer to
yeah,
question.
I think we need to manage time. Maybe Puneet, quick views on cybersecurity in the 5G context from you. You have?
So normally when you design a cybersecurity architecture for an enterprise, you use a common pivot, which is a zero trust architecture. I don't trust anyone. I don't trust my employees, partners, customers, as well as devices. But as we have multiple hundred millions of customers, if you start designing the zero trust architecture for them, certainly it will be very expensive. And the kind of ARPU that actually India is, it is not sustainable. But there has to be at least some mechanism of some, you can say, two-factor authentication or something, because that would actually reduce the kind of, you can say, cybersecurity threats, because people can actually, get into some kind of actually, at least it's open. I can open my browser the moment I'm connected to the internet, and there's nobody stopping me, and I can go to, so there's no control. There might be URL filtering, but there's no control as a user. And I would say that anonymization of data, pseudonymization of data is very important. And the CSPs can actually make sure that the data can't be traced back to the user. And there is also possible to actually give a offer of monetization of data. If you are a successful person and you would not mind actually, getting advertised and be paid, so that is something. I mean, this all depends on what exactly the policies are, but then privacy concerns and the other things are something which need to be actually more, you can say, incubated in the common B2C customers. Whenever they are accessing, more controls, more questions need to be asked, which normally are there in the enterprise segment. But when we are actually, as a normal mobile phone user trying to go to the internet, we are not asked those many questions.
Thank you. Quick point from you.
I just want to add on that there's a difference between network security and cyber security. When Airtel or Vodafone or Reliance say that my network is secure, that means my servers, my data centers are secured, my IPS, IDSs are taken care. When you say a common user having a mobile set, it is as powerful as a laptop or a laptop of a year ago. It's a device which is easily vulnerable, and nobody, if you say the service providers, the mandate is not there to ensure cybersecurity for the same. Hence, in times to come, either the user takes the onus or the network provider takes the onus that I will give you an push model cybersecurity tool which is authenticated by me, and then your end device which is also connected to my network is secure and the vulnerabilities are reduced. We have to move on from this network security model to a cyber security model. Cyber is a domain wherever the IP packet can go is a cyber domain. So if your handset is connected to your network, it is also part of your network, and there are vulnerabilities. This is one realization and a move on we have to do.
Thank you. At this point, I'll pause and actually take the questions from the audience. But typically, I've seen that we tend to ask at the end, and there is no time. We say, okay, the next panel will start, etc. So I really want to give the benefit. Yes, sir. You have a question here. Yeah. So you have questions to all the speakers. Really encouraging, and thank you. Go ahead.
Rakhee, you made a point saying that it's the operators who are the best positioned to enable an ecosystem in the B2B space. But Randeep started his discussion saying that, look, that's not the ecosystem, and you can ask Gulshan. They're more focused on quarter-on-quarter revenue. So he said, I'm looking at innovators to come and leverage what we have. So sharing examples of other countries outside India, who are the dominant players? Is it the service provider who's taken the lead or stitching up the ecosystem in the B2B space? Or are there other emerging entities that have come into which have made 5G enterprise solutions successful?
Thank you for the question. Firstly, I do not think anywhere globally we have a success in the 5G enterprise space. We've got POCs, we've got some commercials. It's on a very small scale. Not enough to energize the rest of the telcos to take the leap of faith, which is one factor which has contributed to the slowness or adoption of this, right? Now, building on the point of what you mentioned, Randeep in the morning said that we have the network, we want people to come and leverage, which is true. The telco will have the network. They also have access to enterprises because they already sell to enterprises. They already partner with their ecosystem. So they'll partner with an IBM, they'll partner with an HP, they'll partner with a Cisco. Their partners are already in place. Why I say the telcos are best positioned is because they have an existing relationship with all the ecosystem partners. They have an existing relationship with the enterprises. They are already providing connectivity. They have an aspiration to go up in the value chain. And if you want to do that, then you need to bring an end-to-end solution, right? And it's not that they have to become creators of cloud and all of that. They stitch the solution together. They get the right partners together. They get the right industry vertical together and bring an end-to-end, I'm repeating that word, an end-to-end solution to the enterprise and make it so easy for them that it's an offer they cannot refuse, right? Because instead of talking to 4, they're talking to 1. You're taking the responsibility. You're building a very compelling business case, which is going to bring in value to them. I think that's what I mean when I say they are the best positioned, right? Because they have the assets already in place.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So now. The other point is that just about over the weekend or last week, we were happy to kind of note that India has 5G market has surpassed that of United States of America, and our respected Prime Minister in his interaction with diaspora also said that India is now beaten US. Beating most countries in the world in numbers is not a big challenge for India because the population is high, but the only other country with the similar population profile is China. And if I look at China, and I did some quick research last night actually, China Mobile, as of August 31st, has got about 533 million 5G network subscribers. And by network subscriber, it means at least that user has used 5G once minimum in month of August, which is different from a package subscriber. That number is possibly 1 billion or something. Somebody who has taken a 5G package. And the second largest, China Telecom, is some 350 million. And the smaller one, the China Unicorn, has got something around 250 million. So that shows there's a lot of potential. The India numbers are possibly not yet easily available at this point of time. To my knowledge, only 2 operators have launched in properly in a commercial way. So there is some more we expect from the others, but there is a lot of potential there. Now, what after 5G is 6G. Again, India's 6G vision was announced early compared to 5G, where we are delayed. And there's a Bharat 6G alliance. We really don't have the time to discuss in detail. But again, we have a long way to go, because 75% of the patents are held by China and US. 40% China, 35% US, 10% EU, 10% Japan, leaves 5%, 3.9% South Korea. So remaining world is 1%. So, but quick word from Sidharth. You wanted to speak on Bharat 6G Alliance.
So we are part of the Bharat 6G Alliance, and it's a wonderful organization looking into 6G. What are the learnings from 5G? And you'll be happy to know that we've already started discussing the 6G use cases in the alliance. What should be the AI? Should we have a different type of setup for AI inbuilt before the 6G standardization happens? So, and further, even in ORAN and in the India Mobile Congress, we'll have a vision document for 6G from the 6G Alliance. What use cases, how AI will be integrated, how the QS will be taken care, all these parameters before, because in 5G, we launched 5G and then we learned all these issues. So in 6G, we'll be taken care. Further, the new kid in the block, the NTN, non-terrestrial networks, a lot of discussions are going on with the satellite operators when the satellite world and the cellular world are meeting, and how we are integrating to ensure a seamless global connectivity, and what are the challenges and the regulatory challenges in that. So these are the issues which are on the burner, and dedicated minds are into it to solve the problem as and when the time comes.
Thank you. Any question from the floor, from the guests, from the audience here? Looks like none. Any views on 6G, Puneet, from your perspective and from Hewlett Packard Enterprise perspective?
So we would, I would say, not be in a situation to accurately predict what the world will be 6 years from now or by 2030. She predicted, yeah. But otherwise, that accurate prediction of technology. So one thing which I always say, that there should be a telco LLM. Not a reliance on a chat GPT or a llama, So you might not build the foundational model from scratch, but you should train it on the big data right from the release 8 till the release 20 and plus whatever, and that model is actually available. The data is available on Hugging Face, and there are people who are actually already globally working on that, and that should be incubated with the Kamara or the GSMA API initiative, put together with the advancements in AI. So always we should keep in mind that AI is also progressing. It doesn't have any generations attached to its name, but that is also progressing. Every year there is actually new mathematical formulas incubated in Python, and there are new classifiers getting deployed, and you will have better accuracy and a better ROC curve as we move forward and define the new, you can say, applicability of these particular things. So one simple use case, I would say, flying taxis. I'm not very sure whether in 5G we can have a seamless, you can say, removal of fear in our mind that, okay, the taxi will not actually lose connection. It would not fall on the ground when I'm driving, right? So with 6G, probably that might happen, because that promises terabits per second speed. I mean, the taxi might not need that much. It's a signaling traffic at the end of the day. But then when it's driving, then certainly it will be needing that seamless, And similarly, the immersive reality, augmented, you can say, amalgamation of mixed reality and spatial, how we call it, spatial computing. The sense of touch, that a remote surgery is being performed from UK in India, and when the doctor is touching something remotely, he feels that, yes, immediately he is getting that kind of a response. So those things are something which 6G would promise.
So on the flying taxi, I can't resist but conclude the session with one kind of it's a social media thing, nothing very official about it. Somewhere during the peak of the lockdown, COVID pandemic 2020, 2021, there was a social media quote. I couldn't help but remember that right now. That here in 2021, or it could have been 2020 end also, we were expecting flying taxis. But instead, we are learning how to wash hands for 20 seconds. That's how reality is. And with this, I need to end the session. We are on time. Thank you so much, lady and the gentleman, and thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Wow, Jaideep, I think you really stuck to the clock. Can we have a quick photograph? And also, may I invite on stage Mr. Shivaji Chatterjee, CEO, President and MD, Hughes Communication, to present the memento to our panelists. Start with Mr. Puneet Chopra. To Ms. Rakhee Chachra. And Dr. Sidharth Shukla. And to our moderator for the session, Jaideep.